Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And welcome in, everybody, to the latest edition of Tider Insider TV, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Rodney, somebody told me today, they said, you know what? We've been watching you two a long time, and you're always more low-key after a loss. I said, really? I said, I think that's just imagination. He said, no. He said, well, I'm going to be really up-key tonight because, you know, give Tyler Booker some grief if you want, and we're going to hear from him a little bit later. But what he said is the truth. Everything's still in front of Alabama, Rodney, regardless of what happened this past Saturday night, and it was a tough one. Alabama loses at home at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and nobody wants to see the Tide lose a football game, especially at home. The way that this team, though, has performed so well so far, even specific players like Jalen Milroe left the team with left the fans with many questions. Rodney, Bama fell 34-24 to Texas, which was then ranked number 11. Of course, they've moved up now into the top 5. Let's get to it. A lot of negatives here. This is the biggest loss ever at home for Nick Saban at Alabama. He'd never lost by double digits at home, 10 points. It's the first home loss to a non-conference opponent since 2007, Louisiana at Monroe. Snapped a 21-game home field winning streak. The last home loss had been against LSU in 2019. And so there are a lot of things that you hate to see if you're an Alabama football fan. But you got to give Texas some credit, too, as they came in here and, quite frankly, they earned the victory. Rodney, let's start with Jalen Milroe, though, because he is the quarterback. It's the most important position in sports. Most of the time you touch the ball in every play. Not always, but most of the time, unless they snap it to somebody else. He had 255 yards of total offense, 2 touchdowns. He made some plays for both teams. Unfortunately, you see one going there the other way. But it's hard for your offense to be consistent when your quarterback is up and down.
It really is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously, like you said, he made some wild plays. We've talked about this repeatedly. Again, I thought he had a really good first game against Middle Tennessee. We said last week this is going to be a major step up. This is going to be a big challenge against this Texas defense, which I said I thought it was the most improved part of their team, their defensive front as a whole. And again, they got some pressure on him. There's no question about that. The offensive line had some issues in pass protection, but at the same time, I mean, Gary, listen, I mean, there's no system, regardless of what kind of system you run offensively, that you throw into double or triple coverage. He did that a few times. He did make some nice plays. It's the inconsistencies. There you see Quinn Ewers. 3 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. The turnovers, yes, Milroe had a couple of touchdown passes, but the turnovers, again, big plays in the game, probably the difference.
Yeah, no doubt the turnovers were the difference. Milroe, but he wasn't the only issue on offense. Rodney, they gave up 5 sacks. Maybe some of them were him holding the ball too long. Some of them weren't. Snaps again. McLaughlin snapping the ball on the ground. You know, Proctor at left tackle, we'd heard he'd had some issues in practice. He really had some issues. So the receivers, I thought, were a high point. Again, tight ends, it's hard to gauge them. They didn't get the ball thrown a lot. Nibak did have the 1 touchdown. But the offensive line, regardless who's back there taking snaps, is going to have to be more consistent themselves going forward.
They are. Look, I'm not sure that Seth McLaughlin's 100% right now. I think he might have a hand issue that's probably hampered him a little bit with those snaps. In fact, I heard they're working some different centers again. They do every day in practice. Let's be clear about that. But I do think that we might see something there this week. It'd be interesting depending on his status. But yeah, I mean, you know, certainly you talked about the left tackle. I think Caden Proctor, we said it again and again and again throughout August camp, that the one thing that, you know, this offensive line could do, they're really good at run blocking. Proctor's going to be a great run blocker, but the issue was, you know, he needs to continue to develop as a pass blocker.
On defense, 3 really good quarters.
Yeah.
I mean, they held up well even after turnovers. Texas has got 13 points going into the third quarter. Alabama had the lead going into the fourth quarter, 16-13. Right after Alabama, which had been running uphill the whole game, gets the lead after Milroe hit Burton on that touchdown pass. The defense gives up a 3-play, 75-yard drive. And really in the fourth quarter, I don't know if it was fatigue. I don't know what it was, but Texas dominated offensively against the Bama defense in the fourth quarter.
They did. And again, I think the defense was put in a tough situation throughout the game because, I mean, Alabama's offense never really got consistent control of the game, never really put a lot of pressure on the Texas defense. And I think there was a lot of pressure on the Alabama defense throughout the game. And I think the dam broke in the fourth quarter. I mean, you look at the first 3 quarters, Texas had 50 yards rushing. They finished with 105, but through 3 quarters, they only had 50 yards rushing. And I'm going to tell you something else that I think really hurt Alabama. Throughout the week, there were some injuries in the secondary. Malachi Moore, Jalen Key, those guys were really limited. Caleb Downs got sick during the game. We saw that. There were some other issues. You had some guys on the field maybe that haven't played as much in the secondary. Sometimes when you have guys that are inexperienced, Trey Amos, the transfer from Louisiana, at corner at one point, that leads to breakdowns. There's communication. There's a chemistry. There's kind of a cohesiveness and a communication that has to develop over time. And again, when you had some of those things that I talked about, I think it can lead to some issues that they had.
Rodney, when you look at the defense in terms of the defensive line, and you needed to get pressure on yours, and they just weren't able to do it, whether it was a push in the middle, and the edge guys, Braswell and Turner, didn't do much. I mean, eventually caught up with them. Ewers is just too good, and he made big throws in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think, again, I don't know exactly how these stats are kept, Gary, but 38 attempts for Ewers, and I think there were 3 official pressures, if you want to consider it that, hurries, however you want to term it. So he was kept clean. And listen, I said last week, you've said it, we've talked about it, is if you can get in Ewers' head a little bit, you can get him out of sync. He's really erratic. He wasn't out of sync. He was clean. He had open throws. I think that was a big difference, and I think the tight end was really big in this game for them, Jatavian Sanders.
I do want to highlight the specialist. Nealon Hibbett, the snapper, was perfect. Jacob Burnap, the punter, was unbelievable, and Will Reichard was dynamic. So give those 3 guys credit. And all the special teams. That was an area where they played really well.
Yeah, they did. And, Reichard's kicks, it kept Alabama in the game.
Sure did. All right, Rodney, it's now time for Coach Talk. There were a lot of players that didn't play their best games against Texas, but the quarterback, of course, remains the most important position, and it is the focal point. That position is. Nick Saban now on why he didn't take Jalen Milroe out of the game, or if he even considered it.
I did, but when he put the drive together to go down the field and score when we got ahead, I thought that gave him a lot of confidence. And but we never ever discussed it. I can't sit here and say the thought doesn't come to mind for any player that's having a difficult time. And obviously the interception was critical in the game. And so we're just going to work to try to get all our players better.
All right, Rodney, obviously Jalen Milroe earned the starting job, and I understand wanting to stick with him, especially after he did make some big plays. Having said that, I thought, sitting in the press box, I said, after a couple of those 3 and outs, I said, maybe it's a good idea just to let Jalen stay on the sideline one time. Put another quarterback in, see how they do, and maybe give him a chance just to watch it from the sideline for a possession or 2. That didn't happen. Your reaction?
Well, again, I would say this. Nick Saban said repeatedly during camp that this is an ongoing competition. Just because the first guy trots out there for the Middle Tennessee game, first couple of games, doesn't mean this thing is settled. So if you base it on that, obviously Milroe had a really good game against Middle Tennessee, but they're playing a lot better competition. Texas is one of those teams. They've got a lot of good competition coming up in the SEC. So the question remains right now is, after this performance, what is Nick Saban going to do? Will he stick with Jalen Milroe? Will he start him in this game? Will he be prepared to bring in maybe Tyler Buckner? Or will Tyler Buckner perhaps get the start in this game? I think it's real interesting because, again, Nick Saban made it really clear they weren't completely settled on this quarterback situation going into the season.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see what the quarterback rotation is against South Florida. If Milroe starts, do they take a look at Buckner or Simpson in the first half? We will see going forward, and much more on the South Florida Bulls coming up, Rodney, in the show. All right, Alabama softball alum and 2012 national champion, 3-time All-American Kayla Braud is joining the Crimson Tide, coming back home as its newest assistant coach. Braud, number 1 in this video, played 4 seasons with the Tide between 2010 and 2013. Of course, they won a national championship in 2012. She was a 3-time All-America. She ranks in Bama softball's top 10 in multiple categories. And she, before coming back to UA as an assistant coach, was a softball TV analyst with ESPN and the SEC Network. And she also served on the Seattle Mariners broadcast team. So good to have Kayla Braud coming back. She is, I think, going to add a lot to the program. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama lands a new commit in football for the 2025 class. And this one also has a connection to the Auburn Tigers. And Alabama's road matchup coming up in Tampa this Saturday against the South Florida Bulls. Hey, listen, Alabama's a 31-point favorite in this game. But you know what? Nick Saban said it this week. Everybody's capable. You got to be ready to go. And we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen, TITV@WVUA23.com, or tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV.
The mindset of the team, we're pissed off. I'm not gonna lie. Who wants to lose at home, But there's only been 2 undefeated teams to win the national championship here at the University of Alabama, and all of our goals are still obtainable. We can still win the SEC West, we can still win the SEC, and get a college football playoff spot.
Tyler, I love you, but I want to correct you. There was football play before Nick Saban. There have been more than 2 undefeated national champions at Alabama, just 2 under Nick Saban. All right, Rodney, he has caused some heat for some of his comments, but what he said is the truth. Everything is, as we welcome you back into TITV, everything's on the table. Now, I think a lot of people are saying, why talk about running the table when you look the way you looked? Texas is really good. If Alabama wins the rest of them, they're going to be in Atlanta playing for the SEC championship spot in the playoff. That's true. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's true. It
is true. And I think Alabama's got a good, if you want to say look at the table, I think Alabama can run the table. Because I really don't think, Gary, that they're going to play a quarterback capable of doing what Ewers did in this game. I think Texas is one of the most talented teams in the country. I could see Alabama running the table. Again, they're going to have to play a lot better than they did on Saturday night, but they can, potentially. This is a really talented team. They're going to have to get the quarterback situation rectified, and they're going to have to play better up front. But I think they can do those.
All right, it starts Saturday in Tampa. This is a 2-for-1. South Florida will come to Tuscaloosa twice. Alabama will go there once. This is a hot recruiting area for Alabama. Now, listen, South Florida, they've been through coaches here left and right lately. Alex Golesh is the new guy. The Bulls are a 31-point underdog. This is their game against Florida A&M, which was competitive for a while. They did go on and win it handily. Alex Golesh is probably, even though he doesn't have the same caliber of player, saying to himself, hey, I want to see again if I can exploit this Alabama defense, because his offense in Knoxville lit up the Tide last year.
Yeah, this quarterback right here, he's a big, tall kid. He's a little bit like Milroe, Gary. Very versatile player. He's a really athletic kid. He can run. I think he had 160 yards rushing in their last game. His guy's really athletic. He throw the deep ball extremely well. So they can score points. You mentioned that. They did lose to Western Kentucky in the opener, came back, beat Florida A&M, but they're a team that you do not want to go down there and take them lightly.
2:30 Central Time on ABC at Raymond James Stadium. Alabama beat the Bulls back in 2003, 40-17. And again, this is the South Florida Bulls, and one of their mottos is "Horns up." So you go from the Longhorns to the Bulls. But again, if Alabama is on top of its game, it should handle South Florida. We'll have our predictions coming up later on in the show. All right, Rodney, one final thought on this game coming up before we move on, and that is this. If Jalen Milroe keeps his starting quarterback position, can he overcome this Texas performance? Let's say that, we know they're not facing as good a team, but do you think that mentally he'll be where he needs to be?
You're talking about for this game?
Yeah, this game coming up.
Yeah, for this game, I think certainly. I think, again, if he gets the opportunity to start and play in this game, this is a big opportunity for him because he's a real competitor, Gary. I know he doesn't feel very good about that. Look, he lived all summer with that Texas A&M game, and then this happened. So, he'll be ready. And again, let me ask you, we feel like that Buckner's the number 2 quarterback based on the Middle Tennessee game. Do you think we'll see him in the first half? I do. Well, I don't know if we'll see him in the first half, but I do think he's getting a lot of first-team reps this week. I think we're definitely going to see him in the game. I think we may see him in the first half. I think they might do a little bit of Milroe's the starter, but I think Buckner may get in fairly early in this one, but we'll find out. Our predictions coming up later on. Now to recruiting. Highly touted 2025 4-star defensive lineman Antonio Coleman of Saraland High School announced his commitment to Alabama Monday evening on social media. 6'2", 280. He picked Alabama over all kinds of offers. Auburn, Clemson, Florida, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, USC, and others. Coleman's dad, Antonio Coleman, played at Auburn. It wasn't that long ago, actually. I think he played in like 2008, and he also played in the NFL for a while. But, Rodney, again, we
we've been talking about the defensive line. You and I love defensive line recruiting. We think it's the key to a program still. And when a guy is an in-state guy and he's a disruptor like this guy, this is a big pickup for 2025.
I love him. I mean, I watched him in the earlier game. He caused a lot of havoc. He was, like you said, he was a disruptor. He's a guy that's got the bloodlines, knows how to play the position, plays with a lot of intensity, look at him. Plays with a lot of enthusiasm. There's no question about that. I like Antonio Coleman a lot. And again, he's a second commitment Alabama has from Sarah Lynn. Of course, they have 5-star wide receiver Ryan Williams.
His dad also played at
Auburn.
Right. You know what Auburn's got to be thinking, my gosh, your legacy, come on. You know Auburn won't quit recruiting these guys, but this is a nice pickup for Bama. Well, still to come on TITV, the National Football League is back, and we've got our Bama in the NFL segment coming up. And the quarterbacks took center stage in week 1. Plus, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, there's the phone number, 205-348-9882. There's the email address. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, and we'll do that next right here on TITV. Week 1 of the NFL season is in the books, and let's check in on Bama in the NFL. What a game for Tua against the Chargers and Justin Herbert. You know, a lot of people have said the Dolphins should have taken Herbert. Not on Sunday, my friend. Out at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, Tua lit him up, 466 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the go-ahead with less than 2 minutes to go. Of course, the Cheetah had a big game. Huge win for the Dolphins. Calvin Ridley's back, and he hasn't missed a beat. I wonder if the Falcons wish they'd just hung on to him. He went for 8 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown in the Jags' 31-21 win over Indianapolis. A battle of former Crimson Tide quarterbacks in New England, the Patriots and the Eagles. The Eagles jumped out 16-0, but here comes Mack and the Pats. They had a chance to win it late. Jones threw for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns, but Hurts and the Eagles survived. 25-20, and no video, Rodney, but Bryce Young made his debut for the Panthers. They're not a really good team, but I can tell you this, that Bryce threw a touchdown and also, showed well at times as we can. Come on back to us now if we want to. We're talking about Bryce Young. Bryce Young did not get the win, but did throw a touchdown in his debut.
Yeah, look, I think he's going to be fantastic. Ridley wearing that 0.
Yeah, they let him wear 0
cool,
now.
Yeah.
How about that? I guarantee you, though, he's not a 0 on the stat sheet. He's going to be filling it up this year. And Tua with a huge game. All right, let's get to our phone calls. First up is Sammy up in Walker County. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Gary, Rodney. Great evaluation of the game, guys, and y'all have already hit on it. My thing was the pressure on the quarterback, and you got to have packages dialed up to. I saw what that guy could do last year. He'll kill you just sitting back there like that. And also, y'all commented a little bit on Seth McLaughlin. He's made more mistakes in 2 games than he has in 3 years.
Yeah, Sammy. Yeah, Rodney, you alluded earlier that you think he might have an injured hand.
Yeah, I think it's bothering him a little bit, Sammy. I don't think he's 100% based on some things I've heard, but he's done a really good job for the most part. But you're right; those snaps have been inconsistent.
Yeah, you got to get that fixed. I mean, that could cost you. All right, let's go. Stay in Walker County and go up to Jasper with John. Hey, John.
Hey, Rodney, Gary, how y'all doing this evening?
Doing well.
I think we need our line needs a lot of work done as defense does too. They need to wrap up when they tackle. I've never seen us play that bad since Mike Shooter left, and for sure that they even come in down there.
Rodney, line play again on both sides. What did you think about the tackling?
Well, I mean, and again, look, Texas had 50 yards rushing. I think the pass rush, Gary, at first, initially, the feeling was, okay, Alabama's defensive front did not play very well. I'm not saying they played great, but they really only rushed 3 and 4 guys. So that, they didn't put a lot of pressure. It was more almost as if they were focusing on the coverage more than pressuring. I think the defensive line certainly has room to improve. I think the offensive line, again, you've got some young players. You've got Caden Proctor, who's a true freshman at left tackle. You've got Tyler Booker, who's moved over to that position after playing a lot of right guard throughout camp. So I think there's some things there that they can continue to develop, and as that cohesiveness comes together, I still think, Gary, this is going to be a good offensive line.
All right, let's get to the break. We'll come back with more phone calls and our email question of the day when Tider Insider TV returns right after this. Welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. With Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris, and let's get to our email question of the day. It's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Here it is, Rod, and it is from Frank in Blount County. Will the players' mental mistakes and lack of mental toughness push Coach Saban to retirement? All right, Frank, that's a popular question. I have seen nothing from Coach Saban that indicates to me he's thinking about retirement. It's the game's evolving, it's changing, there's a lot of things that he's dealing with, but I don't get that vibe at all coming out of that football building.
Well, as far as those factors, I mean, he seems to be really overall pleased with the attitude of this team. In fact, he said yesterday he would be shocked if they didn't respond the right way based on the things that they've done throughout camp, throughout the summer, throughout the preparation time for this season. So I think he's really happy with the players that the team that he has right now. I don't really see that as an issue.
Thank you for the email, Frank. Let's get to Donnie on the phone over in Bessemer. Hey, Donnie.
What's going on, man?
Hey, buddy. What you got?
What's going on? What's going on with our defense? A lot of people says Nick Saban needs to go.
Well, Donnie, I'm going to disagree with you there. And you sound like our friend Johnny. I think that was Johnny in Bessemer. But, Johnny, I'll tell you this. Nick Saban's not going anywhere unless he wants to. I've heard this in my radio show today, too. People saying, could he be on the hot seat? No.
Seat.
There's no hot seat for Nick Saban.
Come on.
Yeah. It's Nick Saban.
It's crazy.
It's 6 national championships. All right. Thanks for the phone calls. Thanks for the email. Sorry we didn't get to a couple other emails. We'll try to get them in next week. All right. When we come back, it's prediction time for Bama and the Bulls. Coming up next right here on this edition of Tider Insider TV. All right, Rod, it's prediction time. As always, we lead off with you.
Well, look, I think this is a big game because I think it's really important that Alabama respond really well, maybe clean up a lot of those mistakes, and I think they will. I've got it 38-10. Man,
we don't ever talk about these picks. I'm not far removed from you. I got it a little more one-sided, 45-10. I think Bama is able to, or 48-10 actually there, so I got 10 more points. 48-10. We both think Bama rolls on Saturday. All right, that's going to do it for TITV. And a reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We're going to leave you tonight with video of the Alabama men's basketball team getting their SEC championship rings. Hey, Petway was back on Saturday night during the Texas football game. All right, we'll be back next week as we get ready for SEC play against Ole Miss. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you again next week.